All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Um, Welcome to the Abortion Access, the Fight in South Carolina webinar. My name is Katie. I'm from WREN, the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network, and we are joined with Ashlyn Perot. She's from Palmetto State Abortion Fund. We're so happy to have her. You see her beautiful face up there at the top. We'll get to know more about her and her organization later. But before we get too far into the weeds, I want to go into our Zoom housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with, like how you can access it later on. You'll see that that the co-hosts will be sharing important links. So Aisha Jones is on the call with us, and she is going to be our fabulous link sharer throughout the presentation. So if we mention something, she'll pop it in the chat. We're very thankful for her. You guys can submit questions at the bottom of your screen. There's like that gray bar, and you'll hit that Q&A button. There's also live captions. You would also click that icon to enable them in the control panel at the bottom of the Zoom window. Let's move forward. So just a little bit about your presenters. So hi, like I said, my name is Katie Tilio. I'm WREN's Legislative Affairs Associate, and I help with policy development and legislative analysis. I've been here for about 6 months now, and it's been very rewarding. And I'm really excited to chat with you guys about, abortion access and where we stand. And here is Ashlyn. Ashlyn, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me, Katie and WREN. Excited to be here.
Ashlyn is the co-founder and executive director of the Palmetto State Abortion Fund, and under her leadership, PSAF has gone from South Carolina specific to like a multi-state organization powerhouse. So we're just really excited to have her on the call to help us, talk about this very important issue. So this is what we're gonna kind of go through today. So first, we're gonna do just a brief overview of both of our organizations, who we are, who's talking to you. If you aren't familiar with us, we're going to discuss an overview of the current national landscape. Then we're going to talk about the current South Carolina landscape, and then we're also going to talk about legislation that was introduced in South Carolina during this session, and then we're going to talk about some resources. So first, let's start with who is the Palmetto State Abortion Fund. Ashlyn, would you like to talk about PSAF for us?
Yeah, so Palmetto State Abortion Fund was founded by myself and my friend Deidre back in 2021, and we are a grassroots organization dedicated to ensuring abortion access for South Carolinians, Georgians, and Alabamians by providing essential financial and logistical and sometimes even emotional support due to the abortion care desert, essentially from Texas all the way over to South Carolina. So far, to date, we have supported over 1,500 individuals, and that was as recent as March. So those numbers are higher now. We just don't have them at the moment. We continue to mobilize volunteers and community resources to sustain our mission. And we also focus on policy from the local to the state level. We don't really so much focus on the federal level. We are way more concerned about what is going on in South Carolina. And that wasn't originally our goal, but it has expanded into that region. And I'm just very, happy to be working with the folks at WREN and Katie and Ashley.
Thank you so much again. I can't say that enough. We're so glad to have you. So you learned a little bit about PSAF. Who is WREN? If you haven't heard of us, we're so glad you're here and took a chance on our webinar. This is just our mission. I'm not gonna read all this for you. I don't think that's very fun. But we have four pillars. We advocate, educate, research, and convene community in service to women and girls for a more equitable South Carolina. We actively advocate. We actively engage in advocacy efforts that promote economic justice and reproductive freedom. We'll talk a little bit about that later. We are educators, so webinar content like this, our weekly legislative update. We perform research in our space, and then of course we have Aisha, who I mentioned on the call, who is actively in community, down feet on the ground, and talking to you guys and seeing what is important for you in South Carolina and seeing how we can help. So a little bit about those, our 2025 legislative priorities. We're focusing on two main pillars, economic justice and reproductive freedom. And when we're talking about economic justice, we mean like childcare, paid family leave, workplace non-discrimination, and then reproductive freedom, protecting access to IVF, improving access to doula and lactation services, and of course, protecting access to abortion, which is what we are going to focus on today. We are doing a summer webinar series where we're going to kind of talk about each of these issues a little bit more in depth. So stay tuned for next month's webinar. And so we're going to talk about a little bit this national landscape. So currently 13 states have total abortion bans. Others restrict at 6 weeks, and South Carolina is one that restricts at 6 weeks. So there has been a rise in the use of abortion medications. So now, since the fall of Roe, there's now it's increased up to 63% of abortions are medication-based, and in South Carolina, there's been 36% fewer clinician-provided abortions, and then out-of-state travel has doubled since 2020.
Yeah, I can add that we see most of the folks who call us at PSAF have to go out of state. The vast majority are not able to get care in state, and they are traveling, if not to North Carolina, to Virginia, because in Virginia there's no waiting period. They can get their care done in one day. For North Carolina, if you have your first appointment at a Planned Parenthood location here in South Carolina, you can go to a Planned Parenthood location in North Carolina, and that counts towards your first and second appointments, just because North Carolina does have a 72-hour waiting period. But I did want to point out for y'all looking at the map that if you look at Georgia, it looks like Georgia is a little lighter orange than us, and that is only because they don't have a ban on telehealth. They have the exact same 6-week ban that we do. They just allow for telehealth, and we do not.
Very, very important distinction, because if you just looked at this, you'd be like, oh, they got something a little better going on. And technically, I suppose they do, but it's still a very restrictive and dangerous ban. Thank you so much, Ashlyn, for that insight. Nationwide, there's been over 68 bills this year that target abortion medication and telehealth access. I just said on the last slide that, out-of-state travel has doubled. So of course, now there are new laws that are attempting to block patients from doing that. And then there's also been court cases and federal attacks to revoke FDA approval of mifepristone. I practice, I promise. I'm not good at medication names. They are taking note of, anti-abortion individuals are taking note on how we are fighting against bans, and then actively, creating policy that can directly impact those bridges, I guess is the word I'm thinking of. So they're taking notice for sure. And so I want to kind of get more into South Carolina and where we're sitting. So these are like our technical restrictions. So we're banned at 6 weeks. There is a 24-hour mandatory delay after counseling, which Ashlyn's going to talk a little bit about what that counseling is and what it looks like. Ultrasounds are required even if they're not medically necessary. It is not covered under Medicaid. You cannot get telehealth for medication abortion. Parental consent is required for minors, and only physicians can provide abortion, not other qualified providers such as a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant. And statewide, we only have 3 clinics. So that's Columbia, Charleston, and Greenville.
So the counseling, they might call it counseling. It's the Women's Right to Know Act from 2010. It requires that you review and sign specific information, sign a document. It has to be done 24 hours before the procedure. And I know, for instance, like Greenville Women's Clinic has it on their website. So you just have to scroll to the page that requires the signature, print it out, sign it, and that is what counts as 24 hours before. It's just a bunch of crap, for lack of a better word. And it's different than what would be considered like your first appointment if you have to go to North Carolina, because that actually requires 2 appointments where, you may be given some in-person counseling. But for South Carolina, if you by some chance are able to actually have your abortion here, that is just some information that you have to read. You don't have to, actually don't have to read, that you have to have, and then you have to sign, and that has to be done 24 hours before your appointment.
And, if that sounds confusing, because it is, right, by design, I would say that they want to make this perhaps not as straightforward as it could be, right? So we'll talk a little more about that. So these bans have very real impacts on our state and on healthcare in our state. So doctors are leaving. OB/GYN residency applications are down 6.7% in ban states like ours. And then overall residency applications are down 4.2%. So, in a state that criminalizes and scrutinizes care, it's a risk for physicians to practice here, and they are afraid to provide care due to the vagueness of the legislation. Anything you'd like to add here with this one, Ashlyn?
Yeah, I mean, even the doctors who are here and practicing here who may want to provide like the best and the standard of care, for instance, in like hospital settings, aren't necessarily able to. They may not have as much power as we think or hope they could have. Hospital attorneys are always going to err on the side of caution. One story that I can share with permission, because it was a public and very viral story from someone in Horry County who needed emergency surgery for an ectopic pregnancy and could not get that care at Conway Hospital. They wanted to delay care and just wait and see and provide medication instead of do the surgery. When I got to this person and connected with them, I was able to get her immediately out of Conway Hospital down to Mount Pleasant at the same day. And the OB/GYN that I work with down there, that I'm friends with, did that surgery that same day and validated that it was absolutely needed and necessary. So, I mean, without doctors who, are able to do these and to take bigger risks, we just, we can't really say what's going to happen because there's more things at play, like the hospital bureaucracy and administrative aspects of things.
Right. And thank you for sharing that. And also just, it doesn't help that we do have some legislators when, you point out some of not some of the flaw of the bans, they then pivot to blaming physicians who are just trying to act ethically and with concern for their patients. And, even saying like, if they don't interpret this law right, you should sue. It's, there's a lot of pressure on physicians to try to make the right decision in an ethical way, but then also not break the law in states with these bans like ours.
Yeah, and you can't blame doctors for not wanting to work here when
No.
they're having lawmakers say things like, "Well, you can sue your doctor, or you should sue the medical board." The doctors didn't write the law very clearly. They did not write the law.
Right. Yes. Um, so then also it's we have to note that South Carolina is a maternity care desert. 13% of our counties have no OBGYNs, midwives, or prenatal care. 17 of those, zero per 10,000 women. And then 28 counties, we have no midwives. So it's already hard enough for women to get care when they're pregnant in our state, and these bans are not helping that situation. On top of that, we already have health disparities that are just getting worse. Black women in South Carolina are 4.2 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and 94.4, so almost 95% of these are considered preventable death. So, we already have kind of a not great health situation in this state, and putting in, bans and laws and restrictions that, shackle doctors and not allow them to make the decisions they need to make for their patients is only making these situations worse. Do you have anything to add on these, Ashlyn, before I skip forward to the next one?
I mean, no, not really. You said it all. They, instead of being proactive and actually making things better and more livable, right, for families here in South Carolina, they're focused on harming people instead.
Exactly, yes. Which then brings us to just like the economic hardships that are, exacerbated by bans when it comes to, getting an abortion, right? So you need to get childcare or get off work to, get your care. Then there's the cost of the abortion themselves, all of the out-of-state travel costs, because like Ashley mentioned earlier, if you're getting an abortion, you're likely moving out of state at this point. So things like hotels, gas, food, bus ticket, things like that. And then also the cost of time. We talked about getting time off of work, but also just it's a confusing process. So if you don't know quite exactly what you're supposed to be doing or how to best to go about it, it could end up taking a long time. And then there's also aftercare costs. So at the end, getting the medication, or even like the heating pad that you need afterwards or something like that. It all adds up, and not everyone has the luxuries of being able to take all of these costs on.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to, I guess, maybe dispel of the costs of an abortion is, yeah, some folks can order their pills online and spend $100, but that is like not what the majority of people are doing. A lot of people are still want to go to a clinic. They still want to see a doctor in person, and the costs range from like the cheapest we've seen at the very beginning. Like prices have gone up. Used to be like 550, now 600 is what the typical cost is for an earlier abortion, all the way up to $25,000 or more. That is the range, going from when you first have your abortion through like the earliest you could get one through the latest that you can get one. And that is because of medical history, whatever health complications there are, how far along you are. The clinics charge different prices. Out of all of the clinics in DC, there is one or two that are more expensive than others, and that is just the reality. So when you see something like, over the past 2 weeks, we had to raise funds for two different minors who were going out of state for care, and these minors were further along, so the costs were more expensive. And I saw someone on just one of our social media accounts say, "Oh, why is it $8,000? Like mine was only 500." Well, actually, this one's 15,000, but 8,000 was the gap that we needed to fill. So there's a lot of things at play, and the more complicated it is, the more expensive it is. You go from a 1 day in clinic, taking your pills, going home, to a 2 day procedure, and then a 3 day procedure based on safety and what is the best standard of care. So the costs can range dramatically, and there are various reasons for that.
Thank you. Yes, definitely good to keep in mind that it's not a one size fits all sort of situation. And so that's kind of what we're looking at landscape wise here, just how it's impacting our communities, our healthcare, individuals, and then just technically what our ban looks like. Now I want to talk a little bit about the abortion legislation that was introduced this past session. So for those who are not as familiar with our legislative season here in South Carolina, we have 2-year sessions, which means anything that doesn't get finished in the first year of session can be carried over into the second. So 2025 was the first of a 2-year session. So we started in the second week of January and went to the second week of May. And this is the legislation that was introduced at this point. It's not dead, but this is where we are. So the first one I want to talk about is 3457. This is the House abortion ban. We had a really big hearing on this one, I believe in February. No, March. It was the beginning of March. I was talking to people in February, so I got my timelines all mixed up there. So this, I have a picture here of our my lovely coworker Tori testifying, and a lot of you came out to testify. So I do want to take a second to thank everyone who came out to testify, anyone who wrote to their legislator, anyone who shared anything on social media, who told their friends, just things that is just so essential to impact. And I don't think that was more beautifully on display than this hearing. It was 3 hours. They heard testimony. There were I think like under 10 that spoke in support of this bill. The rest were strong opposition. And the bill did not receive a vote. And then further than that, Republican leadership put out a letter later that day, essentially saying we're going to put our energy elsewhere, which is not something you see very commonly in South Carolina. So this bill is sitting in committee. Just to backtrack a little bit about the bill process, it's still in the very beginning. In order for a bill to become a law in South Carolina, it needs to be heard in both chambers 3 times in a way that something's called a reading. And then once it passes fully out of those chambers, that's when it becomes a law. So this is at the very beginning of that process. So it had its first reading, it's in committee, and it's sitting there. We will obviously keep you updated if this bill is picked back up. So it's really, if you're, sign up for the PSAF newsletter, sign up for our newsletter. We'll keep you in the loop, but as it sits, obviously we're not in session right now, but we ended that session with it sitting in committee with no vote, which we're very excited about. Ashlyn, do you have anything to add?
Just that as the person who was doing like the organizing outreach to like get people there, it definitely mattered having folks there, right? And we couldn't even get through all of the testifiers that y'all coordinated, and we coordinated with. They couldn't even get to share stories, right? Because so many people signed up. There was someone who drove from Pawleys Island and had been there since like 6 in the morning that day. And that is just, and that actually was not an anti. It was someone on our side, which I was like super pleased to find out. But you showing up matters even if you aren't able to speak out, whether there's simply not enough time or whether you're not comfortable with public speaking. There's other ways to share your story or to talk to the lawmakers. And just as kind of as proof that it matters, two of my Republican representatives from Horry County, the Horry County delegation, Representative Case Britton, and my own Representative Carla Schusler, are not on that committee, but they were there listening to the testimony, and they cared. And McCravey might not care about your stories, but other people like Case and Carla do care about your stories, and so that matters.
Absolutely, yes. I do see a question here from Sydney. Does a bill ever die in committee and never move to a second reading, or does every bill go through this process? Yeah, a lot of legislation dies in committee, absolutely, and we are hoping that this is going to be added to the graveyard. It can get a second hearing and a vote, and that will move it forward in the process, but it can't move forward in the process without that vote. And we'll definitely keep you updated if this is picked back up. But bills can absolutely die in committee. All right, and the next one is Senate Bill 323. This is the bill that could make Ashlyn and I felons for even hosting this webinar. So it is an abortion ban with teeth, which they all do, but this one, big K9s on this one. So it would classify abortion as a homicide with no exceptions, criminalize discussing or referring for abortions, ban websites with abortion information. I mean, Ashlyn, we are cooked. But luckily, this bill has not even received a hearing. It hasn't moved at all. Again, with everything here, you can assume if there's a change, you can hear about it from us. And we'll rally the troops with you. Yes. So nothing moving here. We'll keep an eye on it though, and that is the same for 3537. This bill's a little different. It's a personhood bill. Still just as dangerous. Not an outright abortion ban, but it does define a person as a fertilized egg at any stage. And then, so therefore, any person that's accused of harming a fertilized egg could be charged with homicide and potentially face the death penalty. This bill has also not moved. So we're looking nice at the end of session here. That doesn't mean, we don't want to get too comfy cozy with that, right? We got to keep our eyes and ears out, but going into next session, we can be satisfied that these are sitting still at the beginning of their process. And I have one more here, and this one kind of came up at the very end of session. This one's 4161, and this is it just declares that life begins at conception, which would obviously have an impact on abortion care. Since this one was introduced so late, it was referred to a committee, but has not had a hearing. So we're keeping our eyes on these four big guys. Ashlyn, do you have anything to add with this section?
Just if you want to go back to Senator Cash's bill for a second.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this bill is this is where they want to take us, right? This is where they want to take us in 10 years. Just because something like this may not pass currently does not mean that is not the future that the Freedom Caucus are moving towards. And if you just want to see, where those folks would like South Carolina to be in 5-10 years, I mean, where they want us right now, but they don't have the numbers to do it. Just look to Alabama and look to Texas and see what's happening there. And that is the trajectory for where they want to take South Carolina.
Yes, there are definitely, things that feel crazy to us, and are, let's be clear about that. They are crazy. This is a conversation that's being had, right? It's almost like warming us up to the idea, or at least telling their hand, or trying to warm us up in the sense like they're introducing it and telling us about it, right? So definitely the fight is not over, even if these aren't moving, and we're not going to let them just think that they can slide under the radar with stuff like this. Thank you so much, Ashlyn, for that insight. So those were our bills that we're watching specifically for this. We have our full legislative priorities agenda on our WREN's legislative priorities agenda on our website if you're interested in seeing what other bills and issues we're looking at. But now we're going to move over to resources and how you can help. So I pulled these resources from the Palmetto State Abortion Fund resource website. Ashlyn, do you have comments, additional context for this section?
Yeah, Plan C is just kind of like a hub. There's tons of information there, and that is just one to keep in your back pocket. They also have really cute swag and merch that you can get, sometimes even for free. They'll send out sticker packs for free. The Guide to Abortion Privacy, that is the Digital Defense Fund's security toolkit. And I just recommend that everybody, regardless of whether you will need an abortion at any point in the future or not, just practice better digital security living under the current administration. Shout Your Abortion is a campaign that wants to, talk about abortion, normalize it, and, just share stories. And then the National Abortion Hotline is essentially the hub that works with indie clinics or independent abortion providers, compared to Planned Parenthood, which has the nationwide affiliates and clinics. So if you are ever going to a clinic that is not a Planned Parenthood, because Planned Parenthood has some of their own internal funding, other than reaching out to an abortion fund like Palmetto State Abortion Fund, you would contact the National Abortion Hotline, and they can also provide funding for your abortion if it's at an independent abortion clinic. And then the Repro Legal Helpline is just obviously something to know about in case you ever need it. They have, I believe, a call line and a text line maybe, but they can answer any questions regarding any legal support for anyone who is facing any sort of investigation or was arrested, or any questioning regarding anything abortion or miscarriage related.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashlyn. I do see a question here. Is there currently a campaign or advocacy effort towards mobilizing healthcare providers to take a more public stance against these legislative assaults? I'm not aware of anything specifically. Are you?
I know in my other capacity with Planned Parenthood, we are and do work with business leaders and healthcare professionals. But like Ashley said in the chat, that is sort of the role of the South Carolina ACOG chapter. And, while that's just like obstetricians, gynecologists, there is obviously a need for other public health professionals and medical doctors of all specialties to speak up. So I think that, doing some sort of campaign as like a sign on is a great idea for doctors that are not just OBs.
I agree. Thank you. Yes, ACOG is fantastic, and we've been happy to work alongside them. I have our WREN resources here on this next page. So our Action Center, it makes it easy to send a message to your legislator about the issues close to you, including repro rights. I personally think it's pretty easy, user-friendly. You just click on the campaign and it'll ask you to put in your address information, and it'll type out that letter for you. It's an editable document, so if you want to add in your own stories or just use ours, it's up to you, and it'll send it to your local legislators. We also have an abortion access resource page on our website. and you can have, it'll show you things like how to get the care you need, financial assistance, resources, emergency contraception resources, and tips. So we have that on our website as well. Now, what can you do? So there's a good news. There's a lot you can do with for each type of comfort level, right? So you are already doing the first thing, which is join trainings, webinars, or letter writing workshops. We're so happy you're here. I'm having a lot of fun doing these webinars and like talking with our partners and talking about the issues that matter. But they're more fun with all of you, right? So we're so glad you're here. Like I said before, you can take actions using our Action Center, or if you don't want to use our Action Center, you can go onto the State House website and find your legislators and write them letters directly. Handwritten letters always make an impact if you're wanting to do something like that, or give them a call. We have also Share Your Story. I believe both PSAF and WREN have Share Your Story initiatives and forms, if you are willing to do that. Also, donate. Please donate if you can to Palmetto State Abortion Fund, to WREN, South Atlantic Planned Parenthood, Abortion Access Champions, to help fund these resources. And then obviously Stay Ready to Act when the General Assembly returns. We're going to send out information in our newsletter. I know PSAF will send out information in their newsletters. It'll keep you up to date, and we can share the ways that we would need in that moment. Ashlyn, anything you'd like to add to this section?
Yeah, our storyteller program is mainly just for past callers and clients that we've worked with right now. But when we are mobilizing against bans, we do take stories from other folks and help promote those and get those out there. But we do have a volunteer form, and part of that is where you could write down that you want to share your story. As far as donating goes, we obviously need all of the donations we can get. I can tell y'all that our monthly budget is $25,000 a month in donations, and that's what we expect to pledge out every month. And for the first 2 weeks of June, we spent $45,000 because 165 people needed help just through June 12th. So that was over our budget. We rely on donors, small dollar donors. We mostly, most of our budget comes from that. We get some grants here and there. Sometimes the grants allow us to pay for abortions. A lot of times the grants are very specific with what we can do with that money. So when you see us, putting out donation calls online and whether it's on social media or through our newsletter, that is for patient care specifically.
Awesome. Thank you again, Ashlyn, for all the hard work you do with PSAF. We're so thankful and happy to be partnered with you. And I think that's our presentation today. Yes. Does anyone have any questions? You can hit the Q&A button. We have one in there. Are there student-driven groups on college campuses providing information activism, etc.? I believe so. Aisha actually works a lot in community, and I hate to just put her on sudden blast if she's aware of any college-based organizations that are doing the work.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I don't mind being put on blast. I am always learning and hearing from different groups and communities. So, yes, certain colleges do have groups where they are doing the work. Now, in regards to whether it's specifically or whether any part of the work they're doing is geared towards abortion access, that's going to vary from campus to campus. And I can't think off the top of my head of any colleges right now, specifically in the abortion access realm. However, there are college campuses there are college groups on campuses such as Columbia College. They have the Office of Student Engagement, so they get involved in different types of forms of advocacy dealing with social justice and reproductive freedom issues. The University of South Carolina has a group I'm aware of called No Periods Left Behind. So they're doing some work. And then there are other colleges that I am working on partnerships with so that we can kind of find out what their scope is when it comes to these issues. But the answer to that is yes, there are some. The ones that I know of immediately are Columbia College and the University of South Carolina. But again, as far as the abortion access specifically, that's going to vary. And I am happy to work on doing that research and being able to put that information in the newsletter as soon as I find out more, because that is certainly something that we as an organization want to explore, because college students are definitely, many of them are on the forefront of this movement, and they are the future leaders in our state, in our cities, in our countries and communities. So thank you for that question. But yes, I will find it as much as I can, and we will get that information out so that community is aware of what's happening on our campuses.
So I actually
Thanks,
have the
Katie.
answer to that.
Okay, good.
I have the answer to that. Planned Parenthood has what is called Generation Action. It's Planned Parenthood Generation Action, and those are the college chapters that are across the nation. We have many in South Carolina. For instance, we have Coastal Carolina University has a chapter, College of Charleston has a chapter, University of South Carolina has a chapter, Clemson. There are more. There's a lot of chapters in South Carolina, and it's very easy to start one. And depending on where the college is, the college students who are in my area would work with me. If they are a historically Black college or university, or if they are in the upstate, they would work with my colleague Shaterica. And so those are the abortion specific clubs that are around on college campuses. A lot of times though, if you do see like colleges or universities that have like a women and gender studies program, which is a lot of them, right? They might have some sort of social justice club or something of the sort. So there might be multiple. Coastal has a few. There's a lot, which is surprising for Horry County, but there's a lot on the Coastal campus that are specific to gender equality or abortion or just social justice issues in general.
Thank you both for your insight on that one. A lot going on in colleges, and that's great. I do see a question about the Supreme Court decision about Planned Parenthood and Medicaid. I think we're on high alert for it right now, right? I haven't seen anything come through. The decisions come through yet, but it could be.
No.
I think
So
Wednesday.
Friday is a decision day. Friday could be a
Friday.
decision day. Next Thursday could be a decision day. Tomorrow won't be one because of Juneteenth, but we are waiting for it, and it could be also July 3rd. So if it's not tomorrow, if it's not next Thursday, it could be July 3rd. And we're waiting and watching as far as Planned Parenthood goes on what that decision will be. We plan to have a virtual, I guess, something like this, right? So a virtual explainer and breaking down what this means for our affiliate and for our state within 3 days from the decision. And we will have a rapid response press conference that Vicki Ringer will be heading up in Columbia on the day of the decision.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, everyone keep an eye out for the socials, for the newsletters, for everything on that. And we'll, as soon as we hear something, you will hear something for sure. So awesome. I'm looking and I don't see any other questions. If you think of any after the webinar, we log off and you go, oh man, I should have asked this. If you go onto WREN's website, you feel free to shoot me an email. It's on my little staff page. I'm happy to help. Yeah, I think, thank you so much everyone for joining us. This has been great. Ashlyn, thank you so much for joining us with your expertise. Yeah, thank you, Ashlyn. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I wanted to make sure they could contact you too. Ashlyn has dropped her email in the chat as well if you have any questions for her. But again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Ashlyn. Thank you, Aisha, for moderating. Thank you to Ashley, our Chief Strategy Officer here at WREN, dropping some extra information in the chat for us. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And thank you again. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.